You're listening to 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls.
Welcome to tonight's edition of Coach's Corner on Beaver County Radio. This show features the local headmasters of high school football talking about their upcoming games, star players, personal philosophies, and much more. Tonight's show is being brought to you by the Keystone Wellness Program, Patriot Home Care, the Grand Valley Inn, the Community College of Beaver County, the Beaver County Career and Technology Center, Falcone's Moon Township Ford, the Beaver Falls Municipal Authority, Dr. Montini and St. Barnabas Dental, Goldberg, Persky and White, Friendly Federal Credit Union, the J&J Spratt Funeral Home in New Brighton, Geneva College, Carver Construction, Freedom United Federal Credit Union, Electric Garage Door Sales, Beaver County Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Nissan, McGee Heating and Cooling, Fisher's Foodland, and Beaver County Radio. 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and BeaverCountyRadio.com.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Coach's Corner, our last edition of 2023. It'll be a review of the WPL playoffs, a preview of the PIAA playoffs. We have two Beaver County teams left. It's myself and Mr. John Parada back in the seat. If you're used to me being on the right and him being on the left, we switched it around today. We just did. It's one of those things we did, John. We just had to be different.
Switch it up. It's the state playoffs.
Exactly. So last week we previewed. I had Mr. Corey Simmons, Mr. Bob Workwist was on. Bill Allman, one of your the longest standing employee of the Beaver County Times
33
ever.
years. Started in 1990. I thought he was Bruce Fremming, the Major League Baseball.
He did look like him a little bit.
The first time he walked in the office, I said, "What's Bruce Fremming doing here?" But it wasn't Bruce Fremming.
John's fresh from the baseball general managers meetings, and where was it? Arizona.
Yep, Scottsdale.
You got some sun. Looks like you were on
a little bit. Yeah,
a little bit of sun.
A little bit.
You need some.
Standing around waiting for people.
You need some sun. But anyway, we're here. Ryan Garazunas behind the mic, and we're going to talk with Nick Nardone of the Beaver Falls coach. We're going to get him on the phone, talk to him the second and third segment. But let's go over things. We'll just brief 6A, of course, the week before. North Allegheny wins the title, and then North Allegheny wins the first round. Actually, quarterfinals in the PIAA. So they're going to play this week. They're playing Harrisburg at Altoona on Saturday, so North Allegheny. We still have 6 teams alive in the state playoffs. I don't think we've ever won 6. I don't think 6 have ever gone there, John. There's a lot of good teams in the central part of the state and east, but North Allegheny, a lot of people's mind, they're a favorite against Harrisburg. And then Peters Township, also the WPL champ. They had an easy win over Pine Richland. They're going to face Cocalico in Altoona on Friday. So both Peters Township and NA both playing in Altoona. And both powerful teams, but they're also playing powerful teams as well. As you know, when you get to this point of the year, you're facing good competition.
Here's a little trivia for you. Many, 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 many years ago, back in the 70s, Midland beat Cocalico for the state championship game at Harrisburg Farm Show Arena.
Okay.
And I must admit, that's how I know. So
because it was at the Farm Show Arena.
It was at the Farm Show Arena, yeah. Where I once saw tractor square dancing.
That's right up your alley.
The darndest thing I've ever seen.
You loved it, didn't you?
It was tractors square dancing. It's tremendous.
Well, North Allegheny is facing a very, very good team in Harrisburg. Harrisburg has one of the most productive dual-threat quarterbacks in the state, Sean Lee Jr., 6'1", 180 junior, 3,451 yards of offense this season alone. And in his career, in 3 years, 7,081. He's the son of former Penn State defensive back Sean Lee, and he has scholarship offers from a bunch of different places. So Art Walker says it's one of the best dual-threat people he's ever seen, and they also have a running back in Maya Ewell who has 1,194 yards on 140 carries, and they've got some very good offensive linemen. that are being looked at by major colleges. So it's not just rushing, it's not just passing, it's a couple of guys, and this is what you have to face when you go to the state playoffs.
Yeah, when teams go this far, usually you got to be more than one-dimensional, because eventually when you play better competition, you'll get shut down if you're a one-dimensional team. So, this time of year you see teams, usually, not always, but usually they're able to throw and run effectively.
And North Allegheny's been there before, or Walker's been there before, so experience all the way around. Peters Township, however, John, first time in school history they're in the PIAA semifinals, and they're going to play Friday night. The Indians are going to play Calico from Lancaster County. They have an old-school offensive look under Brian Stoll. They use the flexbone offense like McKeesport does against Aliquippa. Yeah, run-heavy offense that a number of college teams used back, in the 70s, and not many high schools do it anymore. Air Force, Army, Navy, teams like that use it. But
Geneva.
Yeah, that's right. Geneva does, so maybe some of them kids will come to Geneva. Peters Township's undefeated. They've got a great defense, only giving up 65 points in 11 games under T.J. Plack. But T.J. Plack says, we have not faced an offense anywhere near that. They've got a quarterback in Josh Meyer. He's only thrown 40 passes in 13 games, but their offensive game, their run game, they have 4 guys averaging 730 yards. I mean, when you have 4 guys in high school football with over 700 yards as a back, that's a tremendous backfield.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty amazing to have that kind. Of course, if you only threw the ball 40 times all year, there's plenty of rushing attempts, but still, to have 4 different backs go over 700 is quite impressive.
Aaron Longnecker is 5'10", 175-pound senior, has 1,314 yards. He averages 13.3 a carry. Stam Steffi has 820 yards, and the quarterback, Meyer, has 739. And they've got a sophomore named Dame Horning who has 738. So, their coach seems to think they have a lot of blue-collar kids, a lot of good offensive linemen. And last year, Pine Richland beat Cocalico 34-12. So a lot of people are going to think Peters Township is favored, but you can't turn over the ball against a team like that because they're a type of team that controls the ball. And, you may only get a couple, 2, 3 possessions a half. So you better make do with what you have.
Absolutely. And, I haven't seen Peters Township play in person this year, but people I've talked to who I really respect around WPIL football think that they are the best team in the WPIL this year, regardless of class. So it'll be interesting to see this game. And like you said, you don't see teams run this offense anymore. So it's going to be quite a challenge to have 3 or 4 days of practice to try to figure out how to defend an offense that you just don't see.
You're coming into the WPIL championships. Peters Township obviously is one of those teams, Central Catholic and North Allegheny. Well, you've got to count a team that wins a championship as one of the best. Bell Vernon would say, John Parada, maybe you're wrong, but we'll talk about that a little bit in 3A. Aliquippa, obviously, in 4A. Fort Cherry, what they did in 1A, we'll talk a little bit more about that. And, of course, our own Beaver Falls, which we'll talk more about as well. So the 4 championships, the semifinals are set. Bell Vernon plays Hickory at North Allegheny on Friday. That's in 3A. In 4A, Aliquippa, and we'll talk more about this in a couple of segments. Aliquippa plays Selinsgrove at Central Cambria. That's near Altoona, so that's quite a hike. But Quip's used to that.
Quite a hike for both teams, actually. Yeah, I mean, the way the state playoffs are set up now, you're going to have those kind of matchups in the semifinals where it used to be you only have the East and the West playing the championship game, and that's made for some longer trips for quite a few teams in all sports here in the last 10 years or so.
Fort Cherry plays Red Bank Valley at Farrell on Friday night. And Beaver Falls plays Westinghouse. The game we'll have on Beaver County Radio at West Allegheny. Mr. Robert Mangino and myself will have that game for you folks. So some pretty good teams left, John, in the state playoffs. I think all 6 teams have a realistic chance to win it may be that the toughest road might be for Beaver Falls. And we're going to talk to Nick Nardone a little bit for that. They're playing a very, very good Westinghouse team.
I have to think Beaver Falls at this point, after the run they've had here at the end of the season, regular season, and into the playoffs, that even though they may not match up well with Westinghouse player for player, when you get on a roll like that, and you start winning close games and you start advancing, you get that feeling that you can beat anybody, and it doesn't really matter if there's a talent gap or not. And I wouldn't discredit Beaver Falls' talent. They have a lot of talent, and it'll be interesting. Westinghouse has made it this far 3 years in a row. They got to the state championship game last year.
Yes,
something you rarely ever see from a Pittsburgh City League team is a trip to the state finals. And I think Beaver Falls can hang with them, and I certainly think Beaver Falls can beat Westinghouse.
They may not have the top QB and wide receiver they had in years past, but they've got guys like D'Italian Buford and Bricks Raw, and then they've got the linemen. They've got 4 senior linemen. They got a huge line, and that really helps. And they've got enough skill players in Caden Brickner, Denari Harris, Gary Pugh, and Deshaun Anderson to get it done. This Beaver Falls team had problems all year with turnovers, penalties, and they hadn't played perfect. But when it got to the WPL playoffs, they put it together, and despite some mistakes, were able to beat some really good teams. We're going to talk to the head coach of Beaver Falls next. Nick Nardone will join us, and we're here on the Coach's Corner on Beaver County Radio.
The award-winning Grand Valley Inn on Route 51 in Falston provides a delicious family dining experience. Grand Valley Inn is a great place for a party or event. They have banquet rooms for small and large gatherings. Fish and Friday night football go great together in Beaver County. The Grand Valley Inn has great fish and seafood specials on Fridays, live music on the weekends through October, and trivia night on Thursdays. Follow Grand Valley Inn on Facebook to keep up with all the fun. That's Grand Valley Inn on Route 51 in Falston.
Did you know Fisher's New Brighton Foodland is as close as a click? That's right. You can order your groceries right from your home. Click GroceryStoreNewBrighton.com and fill your shopping cart up. It's just that easy. Or stop in to shop for your favorite items. They specialize in fresh meats, hoagies, bakery items, and of course the deli. Pick up a delicious hot meal to go like fried chicken dinners, and don't forget fried fish every Friday. Don't cook, make it a Foodland Day. Visit Fisher's New Brighton Foodland, your one stop to shop for all needs, or click GroceryStoreNewBrighton.com.
How would you like to make the holidays a little better? This is Andy Dangle from Freedom United Federal Credit Union with a Christmas wish for you. Make the holiday the one you've always dreamed of with a visit to Freedom United Federal Credit Union. While you're there, register to win a Christmas breakfast tray from Cafe Colache in Beaver. That's right, get the money you need, plus a delicious holiday breakfast for you and your family just by doing business with Freedom United Federal Credit Union. The interest really is in you at Freedom United Federal Credit Union. Member NCUA, Equal Housing Lender.
Looking for home services? Call Patriot Home Care in Beaver Falls. Their staff provides company, conversation, and companionship to all patients, ensuring medications are taken on time, participating in fun community activities, personal care, meal prep, and light household work are all services provided by Patriot Home Care, all thanks to the hardworking and selfless team members. Call Patriot Home Care at 724-506-8911 or stop in Patriot Home Care, 1225 7th Avenue, Beaver Falls.
We're back on Coach's Corner with the funky music. I love it. Mike Azadian with John Parada, and we're reviewing the WPIL playoffs, talking about the state playoffs. Ryan Garazunas behind the controls tonight, and we're joined now by the head coach of the Beaver Falls Tigers, Mr. Nick Nardone. Nick, congratulations on the big win on Friday.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
I didn't get a chance to come down and talk to you. We're up in the booth, and I did talk to you after the semifinal win against Washington. It was another comeback. It was another tough fight. Boy, you guys don't make it easy on yourself. You guys fight the whole way through, and it just seems like your team just fights and fights to the end. And for the last bunch of weeks, you guys have come out a winner.
Yeah, this is a determined group. I mean, like you said, it'd be a lot more enjoyable for us as coaches if we made it a little bit easier on ourselves and didn't have these dramatic wins in the last minutes of games. But a win's a win, and again, at the end of the day, I'm proud of these guys for fighting and overcoming adversity all playoffs long.
You know, coming into the playoffs, obviously, you lost some tough conference games, so it took you guys down in seeding. But myself and some others were telling people, you guys have the talent of a top seed, but unfortunately lost some games. So I think maybe some people overlooked you guys. And a lot of people thought, well, you know, Steel Valley's got that one big back. But you guys defensively held that team down. And really, if it's not for a few mistakes here and there, you guys probably would have been leading throughout most of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I thought our defense played tremendous that day. These kids really have bought in these last few weeks when the playoffs started to what we're really trying to get done, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We've had a very adverse season, just a lot of stuff happening throughout the year. But these kids are resilient, and they got through the lumps. We've gotten healthy. We've gotten our team in the right position. And we were really hitting our stride going into the playoffs. So we were confident that we could go on a run as long as we continued to stay healthy and execute the way we did.
Nick, I was wondering the way that last minute played out. You scored and then you intercepted a pass in the end zone. How long after the game before your heart started beating again?
Jeez, it was too much. I keep telling these kids, I said, my heart can't take what you guys put me through. Because it's been like that every week. I mean, since the Neshannock game, we've had some of the most dramatic wins. I mean, I could look at each game and say that's got to be the most dramatic win I've ever been a part of. And then we do it again the next week against Washington. And then we do it again the next week against Steel Valley. So it's, like I said, at least we're coming up off tight or coming off on top, because I don't know what I would do if we would have lost any one of those games the way they ended. But we found ways to win, and just so proud of our team.
I was going to say those 3 wins by a total of 5 points. I mean, you can't cut it much closer than that. Well, I mean, what does it say about your? I mean, you know, any playoff game's a pressure situation, obviously, but for these games to come down to a point or two every time, I mean, that's a lot of pressure on the coaches and the players. What's it say about your kids that they're able to hang in there and win these games?
I just think it's a seasoned group. I mean, these kids, we have kids on our team right now that have that's played in 4 straight championships. I mean, they've seen it all. They've been on the good side. They've been on the bad side. Even this season, early in the year, we've lost some real tight ones, and now at the end of the year, we're winning real tight ones. They just don't get rattled. They've been through too many tight games to let any kind of little or single play in a game change the way they play. And they pick each other up. They when one guy makes a mistake, another guy makes a good play. When one guy misses an assignment, another guy picks him up. I mean, they're just they're a tight knit group. They're a group that understands how to handle adversity. And like I said, the most important thing is they just pick each other up when something doesn't go right. They have each other's backs.
Coach, I've been on the field a handful of times for your games this year, and I see how you guys, your whole staff, coaches the kids. I see after the games. And one thing that I noticed, especially in the Washington game, is the joy on the kids' faces. You know, Samari McCoy and some of the other kids, just the happiness after the wins. And I've seen other teams celebrate and be happy, but your kids, it's like I think they know that what they're accomplishing is something special. And it's nice to see the joy in the kids' faces. I'm sure as a coach you feel the same way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we celebrate together, us coaches, these kids. I mean, we've been around each other for the last 4 years, in season, off season. I mean, we have a very tight relationship with our players and our staff, and we just enjoy being around each other. We enjoy coaching them. They enjoy being coached by us. And when you get a big win like that, we all celebrate together, and we have a fun at the end of the day. Playing football is a game, and it's about having some fun. And these kids, we want them to enjoy the victories, and we enjoy it with them. So, yeah, there's a lot of happiness, and obviously winning helps, but it's fun celebrating with those kids.
I know this year's team, mainly a lot of running. Bricks Rawl gets a lot of publicity, as does the Italian Buford. But a lot of guys, a lot of people may not realize it's more than Samari McCoy. You've got a lot of veteran offensive linemen, and that line on offense and defense kind of really controls things for you guys. You guys were dominating against Washington. If it's not for a couple of turnovers, you may win that game going away. But it just seems like on the lines, you guys, as the game grinds along, these guys seem to overwhelm teams, and that's a big, big difference for you guys. And they don't seem to get the publicity that maybe they should.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, when we were in halftime and we were down 6, we didn't do any X's and O's on the board. We didn't do any game planning or changing of the game plan. We had a meeting with the line, and we talked to them, and we explained to them, and it got a little fiery and let them know that they weren't playing the way we knew they were capable of playing, and that the reason we were in that game and made it to the championship was because of them. And we challenged them and told them that the reason we were going to win that championship was because of them. And those kids came fired up in the second half. And, I mean, you could just tell by the way we were able to stop the run on defense behind that line, and the way we were able to run the ball, and the difference of our offense and how we were able to move the ball in the second half. It was all from the play of our line. And those guys did a tremendous job, and they're the heart and soul of this team, and everybody knows it, on our team at least.
Nick, I wanted to ask you about Deshaun Anderson. He had 5 catches for 51 yards on Friday against Steel Valley, but he had 4 fourth-down receptions that resulted in first downs. And I must admit, I can never remember a high school receiver having that many big fourth-down catches in a single game. I mean, what does that kind of speak to him and the clutch player that he has been and was on Friday?
Oh, man, it's just leadership. I mean, the kid knew that he needed to make plays for us, and he knew he needed to step up for us. And a couple of the plays, he came over to me and said, "Coach, get me the ball." And I said, "Okay, if you have a kid that says, get me the ball, I don't even think twice." But yeah, for him to make those 4 plays, I mean, the stat line, like you said, doesn't jump out to you. But when you look deeper into it and realize all 4 plays were on fourth down, and all 4 fourth downs led to our 2 offensive touchdowns, we don't score at all if he doesn't catch even one of those passes. So the plays he made were tremendous, and he's been a huge leader all year and a huge part of the reason we're winning football games now.
Speaking of leadership, and I know you've touched on that earlier in the interview, but, I mean, you lost some really tough games this year, and sometimes it seems like things can snowball on a team when you're having some bad luck. But yet your guys hung in there, and here you are, and you don't see too many 5-loss teams get to the state semifinals. I mean, what turned it for you? Was it just a little bit of good luck or better playing or a little bit of everything?
No, it was more of just a heart-to-heart moment that we had with this team at one point this season. Like you said, things weren't going good, and we aren't going to sugarcoat it. Things weren't going good internally. We had some issues. We had some stuff that we had to deal with, but we as coaches and these players came to an understanding. We handled the situation, and I tell them after every one of these playoff games that if any of that stuff doesn't happen and we don't face that adversity early on in the season, I don't know if we are where we are. So it's one of those things where you kind of think everything happens for a reason. Maybe we lost those games for a reason, so this team could learn what it takes to win and what needs to be done, both on and off the field, to make sure that we win these football games and these tight games late in the season. And we've been lucky enough to come together, like I said, as a staff and as players, and win a championship.
Coach, we're going to take a quick break. Can you hang with us for one more segment so we can talk about the Westinghouse game?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break. It's the Coach's Corner. We're with Nick Nardone, a WPL champion for the 6th time Beaver Falls wins it, their first one since 2020. And this one is oh so sweet, another Beaver County championship. We'll be back more with Nick Nardone, myself, and John Perrotta here on the Coach's Corner.
This is Mitch Carver from Carver Construction. Playing a great football game takes teamwork, great leaders, and great individuals. As a former high school football coach myself, I know what it takes to win. I apply these same qualities to Carver Construction in New Brighton. Satisfying customers isn't anything new at Carver. We've been doing it since 1982 for both residential and commercial renovations. I'm behind every job we do, so I can guarantee you that every time you deal with us, you win. Call us or visit us at our website at carverconstructionpa.com.
If you're a parent that's already watched plenty of youth baseball or soccer games, you know the value of teamwork. Whether it's the team on the field or your team of family members at home, strengthening that group can pay off in many ways. Keystone Wellness Programs is offering their free Strengthening Families program in Beaver County for families of children ages 10 to 14. Learn how to increase family bonding and communications, all while having fun together. Visit KeystoneWellnessPrograms.org for details.
I'm Daniel Frank, and I'm a Beaver Bobcat. That's because we are training for a long and a very profitable postseason once high school is over at the Beaver County and Technology Center.
If you're an employer, what do you look for in a prospective new hire? A proven track record is usually the number one trait. For 46 years now, the Beaver County Career and Technology Center has been creating the workforce that has shaped Western Pennsylvania industry and service sector enterprises. It's the program with proven experience that employers know they can count on when they need to fill their workforce. Enroll your child or grandchild at the known quantity among educators and business leaders alike for 4 decades. The Beaver County Career and Technology Center. Signing up through your local public school is easy and can give your student the ability, in many cases, to make more money in certain fields than college graduates. Free career training at Beaver County Career and Technology Center is the perfect choice. Visit bcctc.org.
We're back, and this music kind of reminds me a little bit of the movie Major League. You know, it's that 80s, 90s music. Yeah. You know, it's kind of, a little funky. You were a dancer back in the clubs back in the day, weren't you, John?
No.
You weren't?
No, I might have had a beer or two, but I didn't dance.
You weren't dancing at all?
I wasn't dancing.
You didn't want to try to show the women your moves?
Hard to show moves when you don't have it.
Well, here, Coach's Corner, our last edition, and we're talking WPIL playoffs and a WPIL championship for two Beaver County teams, Aliquippa and Beaver Falls. And we're with Nick Nardone, the head coach of Beaver Falls. Nick, let's talk a little bit about this game upcoming against Westinghouse. They went to the state championship last year. They've got a tough team. Talk to us about what your team has to do against them to come away victorious.
Yeah, it's another one of those games where you just really got to play a perfect game. Can't give them extra opportunities, can't give them the ball, can't give them momentum. Just kind of watching them on field, they are on a film. They feed off of turnovers, feed off of momentum. Very well-coached team, very disciplined team that plays very hard. By far our toughest opponent. So
they're also a team that comes back from adversity as well. They were down 14-0, come storming back and win the game. And you mentioned the turnovers as well. And that's something I wanted to get to. I know that's been a bugaboo with your team all year long. And as coaches, what do you do to talk to the kids about turnovers? I mean, it's not like they do it on purpose, obviously. Is it carelessness from them? Is it no lack of concentration? Is it not securing the ball? I mean, when you look at it on film, is there ways to correct that?
I feel like earlier in the season or earlier in the playoffs, the Neshannock game, it was definitely stuff that was correctable, and we felt like we did correct it. We had a lot of fumbles that game, just protecting the ball, understanding when contact's coming and going over and just drilling with them during the week, protecting the ball certain ways when you're about to make contact. The Washington game, it was interceptions, just talking to our quarterback about making smart decisions, living to play another day. If something's not there, eating it. And I thought he did a great job in the championship of not throwing the ball into harm's way. But the fumble in the championship was just an insane play. I mean, their kid puts his hat right on the ball. Great play by him. Ball pops out and just lands right in the lap of one of their linemen. I don't think there's much you can do about that. But definitely something we've discussed over the weeks. We've drilled over the last couple of weeks. So just hoping to protect the football and not beat ourselves.
I know this time of year you run into good quarterbacks pretty much every week, but Khalil Green from Westinghouse, Nick, 239 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and 50 yards on the ground against a really good Farrell team on the road. And I guess it really stands out as he threw a 268-yard touchdown passes in the fourth quarter when Westinghouse came back. From what you've seen on film, how good is he, and how explosive is this Westinghouse offense?
Yeah, I'd say, he's a very tremendous quarterback, a very tremendous athlete, but I think a lot has also to do with the guys that he's throwing the ball to. They have very good receivers. Like I said, by far our most difficult opponent we'll face all year. They're just a complete team. They can run the ball, they can throw the ball, they play defense, they play hard, they play discipline. Just a very well-coached team and a very gifted team in terms of talent.
Usually you get into the state playoffs and sometimes you have some long road trips. Like, for example, Aliquippa has to go out to Ebensburg, which is almost to Altoona. You only have to go to West Allegheny, which certainly, isn't a bad trip from Beaver Falls out to Imperial. How good is it to know you don't have to make one of those 3 or 4 hour bus rides to play a game?
Oh, yeah, we're fortunate. Earlier on in my career when I was still an assistant, we had to make a trip to Altoona to play a state semifinal game, and really felt like in that game, from what I remember, it took us about a quarter and a half to get our feet underneath us. It was tough to get the kids ready to go after that long bus trip because you're just not used to it. So definitely beneficial to us that we only have to go 45 minutes. Like I said, it's just as far as any other trip we've gone on all year. So thankful that we got that opportunity.
Coach, a lot of times this year, 4 teams that are going to come from Acrisure Stadium and then go back to high school stadiums. And we see this all the time. There's always a team or two that comes off that high of winning a championship, and that's important to win a WPL championship. And then you're back to a state semifinal in a high school stadium. And that's one step away from going to a state championship. Some teams just it's over them, and other teams see the opportunity. What are you saying to the kids to get them fired up for a state championship after the high of a WPL championship?
Yeah, that was definitely the concern of the coaching staff Monday when we got to practice, just what kind of mentality were the kids going to have? Were they going to be kind of just lax and kind of complacent because they had won a championship, or will we still see that fire and that focus and that hunger? And I'll tell you what, man, we haven't had to say a thing. These kids are locked in. They are not finished. They are not satisfied. We are excited about the mindset that these kids have going into this game.
John talked about Khalil Green. Now, do you think, of course, I don't expect you to tell us everything you're planning on, but do you think there's a key to stopping him is getting more pressure on him, or getting his receivers covered longer and keeping him from having open looks? What's a big key to stopping that offense?
I think you got to mix it up. I think you got to keep them on their toes and give them different looks and try to give them things they haven't seen before. So we'll try to mix things up. We'll try to give them looks that they haven't seen before and see if they can pick it up.
Nick, Westinghouse fell behind Farrell 14-0 the other day. When you see a team that's able to come back like that, they seem kind of like your team, that they're pretty resilient. How do you look at that?
Oh yeah, they're a resilient team, but I think we are too. The way our team has played over the last few weeks and come back from crazy adversity and found ways to win. I love the way we responded to all of that. And then, they, like I said, they're a team that seems to feed off momentum. They got down, but then their kids never quit. Like I said, very well coached and motivated team. And as soon as they got things going their way, they never looked back. So we got to keep the momentum in our favor, and we got to make sure that we don't give them any opportunities or any momentum to try to beat us.
Nick, I realize when you're in the season like this, you're taking it one day and 1 week at a time. But when this is all over, and hopefully it's with a championship in 2 weeks, Could you have dreamt up a scenario quite like this for your team to have this kind of year with so many ups and downs and good and bad, and just it's been a really eventful season for your team?
Yeah, I mean, there's no way you could dream of a season like this. I mean, we definitely had high expectations, and we definitely thought we were going to play for a championship, but we didn't expect the season to go the way it did with the ups and downs and all the highs and all the lows. I mean, we knew we had a good senior group coming in. We knew we could compete for a championship. We didn't know, obviously, that you can't predict adversity and you can't predict some of the things that happened to our team this year, but makes it even that much better to see how our kids overcame all the adversity and were able to still end up winning a championship and giving themselves an opportunity to possibly play for and maybe win a state.
Well, Coach, we really appreciate you taking time out. I know you've got a young family, and that's important to you as well, and you don't get enough time to spend with them. But everybody wants to talk to a champion, and we really appreciate you every time you do come on with us. It should be a very good atmosphere at West Allegheny. West Allegheny brings their fans, their fun. You guys bring your fans. We're hoping it's a raucous atmosphere, and we look forward to it on Friday night. Good luck, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Okay. Thank you, Coach. And we're going to take a break here on Beaver County Radio. We've talked with Nick Nardone. We talked about 6A and 5A. We'll talk about the other classes and talk a little bit more high school football as we wrap up our last edition of 2023, the Coach's Corner, only here on Beaver County Radio.
Hey, how would you like to have a little extra cash to sock away this time of the year? Or how about Christmas cash for your stocking? This is Cindy Hiladio from Friendly Federal Credit Union. Well, whether you wear socks or stockings, we will have you dancing on your tippy toes in that footwear with our holiday loan special. Borrow up to $3,000 for 30 months from just 3.99%. Available for a limited time with approved credit. Click friendlyfcu.org, member NCUA, Equal Housing Lender.
Thanks for tuning into the Coach's Corner here on Beaver County Radio. Tonight's show is being brought to you by the Keystone Wellness Program, Patriot Home Care, the Grand Valley Inn, the Community College of Beaver County, the Beaver County Career and Technology Center, Falcone's Moon Township Ford, the Beaver Falls Municipal Authority, Dr. Montini and St. Barnabas Dental, Goldberg, Persky and White, Friendly Federal Credit Union, the J&J Spratt Funeral Home in New Brighton, Geneva College, Carver Construction, Freedom United Federal Credit Union, Electric Garage Door Sales, Beaver County Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Nissan, McGee Heating and Cooling, Fisher's Foodland, and Beaver County Radio. 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and BeaverCountyRadio.com. At Pittsburgh Bay's Goldberg, Persky and White, we've helped thousands of former Babcock and Wilcox and J&L Steel employees receive compensation for their asbestos-caused lung cancer or mesothelioma. Since the time from asbestos exposure to disease diagnosis spans decades, many do not realize their illness was caused by asbestos. To find out if you are entitled to compensation, call GPW today at 1-800-COMPLEX or visit online at gpwlaw.com.
We're back on Beaver County Radio, and we're jiving to the tunes. I usually don't have my headset on, so I can never hear the tunes, John, but I'm kind of excited about the music. It gets you going.
I think we need to wear the headphones now.
I think, yeah, maybe we do remotes. Some of the fine places we went to this year, we want to thank so many people this year. We went to Capico's Pizza. We went to Vesuvio's. We went to Al's Corner.
Crab Rangoon on the menu.
I'm trying to think. We went to Fisher's.
Yeah.
Foodland
in New Brighton, yeah. We had a good time.
The first one with Rochester was at...
A couple of people thought you worked in a produce department.
Yeah, they did. I thought I worked in a produce department. Where was that? Down on 51. We went to two places. 2 weeks.
To Grand Valley Inn.
Grand Valley Inn with Rochester. We went to...
Standard?
The Standard. We had Beaver at the Standard.
And we saw former Aliquippa quarterback Mike Lundy cooked our meal.
How about that? We went to Zookie's 2 weeks ago. loved going to Zookie's. So we had some good times, and we're going to continue in basketball. But it's from what I know now, starting in January, we're going to have the show in studio. We're going to try to change things up a little bit. Instead of having one team, we're going to do two teams with a couple of players, a couple of coaches. We'll try to get some matchups and maybe some rivalries and try to mix things up a little bit, I
hope they don't get in a fist fight here.
Yeah, I don't think anything like that will happen.
Mix things up.
Speaking of mixing things up, let's talk a little bit more about football. And let's start in 1A. Unfortunately for Beaver County's local teams, 1A, the Southside Rams lost in the championship to a very, very, very good Fort Cherry team. And, Southside was a team that just had beaten up on everybody most of the year, 40-some points a game, number one seed. There were people that thought Fort Cherry could be the number one seed. In fact, I heard Fort Cherry was a little bit miffed that they weren't. But, number two seed, still pretty good. Fort Cherry beat Rochester, a local team on the way. Rochester just, local team had a good season, but just too many injuries. But Fort Cherry with Matt Sieg beats Southside. In single way, when you get a dual threat quarterback as a sophomore with the talent this kid has, and he kicks and he punts and he does everything, it's hard to contain him. And Southside couldn't do it.
It is. And, for Southside to get beat by 2 touchdowns is a tribute to Fort Cherry, because Southside is awfully, awfully good this year. And for somebody to beat them the way Fort Cherry did, and, you talk about Matt Sieg, and, you hear people, especially from, bigger school districts say, well, the kid's in Class A. How good is he really? How would he be if he were in AAA or 5A? Well, I tell you what, from what I've seen of him, and I didn't see him in person, but I've seen him on TV and in highlights, he could play at a 6A or a 5A school. There's no doubt in my mind. He just happens to live in a small school district, but he has the talent to play at any level of high school football. And, you already look, he's getting a multitude of Division I offers, and he's only a sophomore.
They're undefeated, 14-0, first time in school history they won a WPL title. There's a tremendous program over the years. Could never quite get over the hump. Lost to Rochester for years and other Beaver County teams. And finally, Fort Cherry gets over the hump. And they play Red Bank Valley, a team that's 12-1. That's the District 9 championship. And now the Rangers, first time in state playoffs, they're looking to go to do – they're doing something they've never done as a program before. And this team in Red Bank Valley, they're in the Keystone Shortway Athletic Conference. They're only 2 seasons away – I lost my train of thought here. They're only 2 seasons away from losing to Bishop Canavan in the state semifinals, or to Bishop Canavan, and then losing to Bishop Guilfoyle in the state championship. Beating Bishop Canavan in the semifinals and losing to Bishop Guilfoyle. So this is a team that's been there. My mistake. I'm not perfect
getting your
like
bishops
you.
Mixed
exactly. The bishops moved up. But this is a team that's been there, and some of the kids on the roster have been there, so there's some experience on this side again at the team they're playing.
They are. Red Bank Valley has been good the last few years, and it'll be interesting. And I just want to double back to Fort Cherry for a minute. Jim Gary was the head coach there for
years.
Literally ever. Yeah. And when I first started out covering high school football at the Beaver County Times, also a million years ago, he was such a nice guy whenever they would come up and play teams from Beaver County, and he just always was just a very good guy, and it's a great football family. And, as much as I'd like to see Southside and Luke Travelpeace and his team win, I felt good for Fort Cherry because they have a tremendous tradition there in Fort Cherry. And that's the one thing that's eluded them forever was winning a WPIL title. So it was kind of neat to see them win, even though they did beat one of our teams from Beaver County to get the title. Fort
Cherry wins they won, Red Bank Valley 44-0 last week against Cambridge Springs. Both of these teams are alike, not just because they wear red and white, because they both have that scheme, but they both have dominant sophomore quarterbacks. Of course, we know about Matt Sieg. I believe I'm pronouncing his name right. I hope I am. He only needs 24 yards for 2,000 on the ground, and he's thrown for 1,504. He's accounted for 58 touchdowns this season, which is unbelievable. On the other side, Braylon Wagner has done most of the damage for Red Bank Valley with 2,744 yards and 43 touchdowns through the air, and has seniors Ashton Cayley and Mason Klaus both have over 1,000 receiving yards, while they have a junior, Drew Byers, has 932 yards on the ground. I mean, so they're another team that can do it through the air and on the ground. So we should get good weather Friday. You never know. I have a feeling this could be a very high-scoring affair.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, two high-powered offenses, and it'll be fun. You know, you never know for sure what you're going to get when you get to the state semifinals, because all of a sudden you're seeing teams that we don't know much about for the most part. We know something about Westinghouse because they play in the Pittsburgh City League,
right.
But we really don't know much about Red Bank Valley. I know a little bit about Selinsgrove, who's playing Aliquippa, mainly because my wife is from that neck of the woods, and I know they're pretty good year in and year out. But that's what makes it really interesting when you get to this far into the state tournament, is there's a lot of unknown, and it's really hard to predict.
And you just never know how. People will say, oh, 1A team, where are they playing? But, you know, some conferences are tougher than others. And sometime when you have super talented kids in 1A, they can carry a team. But then you don't know who you're playing if they had a real tough schedule. Yeah. You don't know how tough your schedule is.
Exactly.
We kind of know in the MAC conference, in the Parkway conference, there's tough competition. And in Beaver County, generally the teams coming out in Beaver County are ready to play, but some years the other side of the state's better. We have 6 in there now in the state semifinals. We talked about Beaver Falls. We talked about Fort Cherry. Talked about North Allegheny, Peters Township. We're going to talk a little bit more now about Quip in the next segment, but we'll talk about Bell Vernon now, a team that easily beats Avonworth in a game we had on Beaver County Radio. We were there. We figured Avonworth plays in a conference with Beaver County teams, so we did that game. They were impressive. They played great defense against an Avonworth team that scored a lot of points. They played very good on offense. They controlled the ball, and it really wasn't a challenge against a very good Avonworth team. So here's Bell Vernon. They have to play Hickory at NA Friday, and I don't know, but I think out of the 6 teams that are left, I would think they might be the biggest favorite of the 6.
Yeah, that was an impressive win over Avonworth. Like you said, Avonworth is very good, and Bell Vernon dominated that game. Again, you just don't know for sure. I would think they should beat Hickory, but like you made a really good point. It's hard to tell what the competition is in other parts of the state. You know, I mean, it was District 10 that good this year in AAA, and I don't really know.
You know, Bell Vernon, more than just Quentin Martin, Penn State recruit, more than likely he's going to either be a defensive back or a wide receiver. Very talented. Avonworth did everything they could to take him out of the game. That was smart, but then they couldn't control Braden Locke, the quarterback, who's going to play tight end in Major College. And he was a good running quarterback. You know, the Leopards are going to try to win the state title again. Last year they reached it. This time they're attempting to join Central Valley as back-to-back champs and extend the WPL's winning streak in 4A to 4 years. So that's impressive. So I think talent-wise, Bell Vernon has enough talent to possibly beat a team like Hickory. But then again, with turnovers and things like that, you just never know.
You don't, and that's what makes it great. If we knew who were going to win, we wouldn't need to have the show. We would just give the score ahead of time, which I don't know if that made any sense at all.
Hickory is 11-2. They're going to seek its first state finals appearance ever. They're going to be they run quite a bit. Calvin Morrison is a freshman. You're asking a young kid, and they also have a senior in Sean Kennedy. Both run the ball a lot. Junior quarterback Xander Talese has 2,000 scrimmage yards, so they run the ball a ton. So Bell Vernon did a good job of stopping a mainly running Avonworth team. So I think that's why coming into this, of the 6, I just have the feeling about reading about what the other team has and what Bell Vernon did to get to this. That's why I think they probably are, in my mind, the biggest favorite of the 6.
Yeah.
We're going to take another break. Ryan Garazunas behind the controls. We'll come back in our last segment. We'll talk Aliquippa football, and we'll talk about their state semifinal game coming up on Friday night here on the Coach's Corner.
Choose your path at Community College of Beaver County and start learning for real life at a realistic cost. CCBC's 2-year degree programs get you trained and earning a salary in less time and with less debt. Programs in aviation, nursing, education, process technology, criminal justice, and more will prepare you for a real future. You belong here. Apply now or learn more at ccbc.edu.
You know, I've heard people refer to older veteran athletes as being all washed up. Well, quite frankly, that's a rather nice compliment if you ask me. This is the Aquaman of Beaver County, Jim Riggio from the Beaver Falls Municipal Authority. When you hear something like that, you have to consider the source of the water, that is. After all, getting washed up with Beaver Falls Municipal Authority water can't be a bad thing. That's because for over 80 years, we've made it possible for everyone to feel washed up, even if they are not star athletes. Click bfwater.net.
This football season, don't pass on McGee Heating and Air Conditioning. Honest sales and 7 days a week emergency service have made them tops in their game for over 60 years. That's how long families just like yours have been relying on McGee for all their heating and cooling needs. Get ready now for the cooler days ahead and call McGee today at 724-375-7112. Serving the Beaver Valley, including Aliquippa, Monaca, Hopewell, and Center Township. McGee Heating and Air Conditioning. Family owned and operated, Main Street, Aliquippa. Good luck to all the teams who visit the Gridiron this season from McGee Heating and Air Conditioning.
It's football season, and now is the perfect time to get to a new vehicle from Beaver County Auto and show up at the next tailgate party in style. This is PJ with Beaver County Auto, and we have a cooler full of special deals on new vehicles. During the Make This the Summer event, now through Labor Day at Beaver County Auto, right now you can get a $6,000 Baba Beaver discount on a 22 Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cab, or how about a 10% off MSRP on the new 23 Jeep Renegade Latitude, or employee pricing on a 23 Jeep Gladiator Overland. Plus, if you buy a new vehicle right now, Beaver County Auto will cover your first year of basic maintenance with guaranteed credit approval and a lifetime powertrain warranty. Our great selection of vehicles at 3 locations, including Beaver County Nissan, Beaver County Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram, and the Beaver Valley Auto Mall, you can pick out the perfect vehicle. You can also shop online and apply for a loan anytime at beavercountyauto.com. Get to Chippewa and we'll make you a Baba Beaver believer.
Beaver County! Listening to live sports on the radio in Beaver County is a tradition. This is Craig Fontana from Moon Township Ford, and I ought to know. My dad, Bill Fontana, has called games for over 50 years. Beaver County people know a good call when they hear one, and the best call you can make is to buy your next new or used vehicle at Moon Township Ford. Click moontownshipford.net or visit Moon Township Ford on University Boulevard.
Balcones Moon Township Ford, where friends send friends.
Back on Beaver County Radio, dancing to the tunes. Mike Zadian, John Parada, Ryan Garazunas. I think I got his name right. Probably about the 30th time. It took me a while. It's hard for me to get some of those names right.
Ethnic name.
Well, I was going to say that, but I don't want to get. I got to watch what I say.
Well, you have an ethnic name.
I do.
I have an ethnic name.
Parada. I always say Parada, and people say, "Don't you know the guy's name? You've been friends with him for years."
It is Fano, but everybody butchers it. So
let's talk about the Aliquippa Quips, the last team. They're going to play Friday night, Aliquippa, against Selinsgrove at Central Cambria. The Quips win against McKeesport 35-21, a game that McKeesport took advantage of a special teams mistake, and Quip let them come down the field, and they moved the ball against Quip, unlike a couple years ago. And this Quip team defensively has kept some teams around, like Latrobe in the first round. And a couple of times mid-season, so they weren't as dominant defensively. They gave up more points, but they still very high-powered offense, John. And if they don't turn the ball over and they do what they're supposed to, they're a tough team to match up against.
Yeah, they really are. And, I mean, you look, like you said, they have so many weapons. And the one thing, I mean, Cameron Lindsay had the 3 touchdowns, and that obviously stood out last Friday night against McKeesport. But the other thing that stood out to me is Quentin Good, the quarterback, was 8 of 14 for 157 yards. But of those 8 completions, they went to 7 different receivers.
Yes.
And you just don't see many high school teams have that many different guys catch a ball in a game, and especially in a game that wasn't a blowout where you're playing your second and third string. I mean, you're playing your first string, your starters the whole way, and they had 7 kids catch the ball. DeMarcus Walker was the only one that had multiple catches. He had 2 catches for 33 yards, but one of them was a big one because it was a touchdown.
Much like what happened with Brandon Banks, they used 3rd and 4th down to go to guys. And you mentioned Quentin Good. DeMarcus Walker, a senior, as well as Quentin Good. John Tracy, a senior, on the ground, does a lot of help. He's a diminutive, more of a scat back, and he gets things done. Brandon Banks, a receiver. Cam Lindsay, one of those was a defensive touchdown. The other 2, when Tyke Hayes was hurting a little bit, he ran the ball in. He's going to go to Pitt as a linebacker. Also, Michael Gaskins, a couple of big returns, big catches. Tyke Hayes, what can you say about him? They held him down some, but he's still over 100 yards. He's only a junior. Jace Williams, a senior. He had a ball down the middle as a tight end. Perfect pass called back because of penalty. Mekhi Green, only a junior. He's going to get looks at that. He 8, 9, 10 tackles solo. He's a great defensive player, and you don't hear his name a lot. For a team like this, 19, 20 WPL championships, you can say all you want about them, but it's about talent. If they didn't have the talent, it wouldn't matter about the history. These kids are talented. They're all very, very good players.
Well, that's the thing. History only take you so far, and I think there is a standard set at Aliquippa that kids really strive to meet, but you do have to have talent, and they do have a lot of talent on their team. On up front, in the backfield, receivers, quarterback. I mean, they're really good all the way around. Like you said, their defense can be a little shaky at times, and that could come to bite you like it did last year when they lost to Bishop McDevitt in the state championship game. But when you can score a lot of points too, that can cover up some of the sins of your defense.
Well, we're going to talk about that in a second. Aliquippa playing Selinsgrove Friday night at Central Cambria. Aliquippa's trying to make it to the title game for the 3rd consecutive season and 4th time in 6 years. Selinsgrove is in the semifinals for only the 3rd time in their history. The others were 2008 and 2009, so nobody on the team obviously was. But the 2009 team won a state championship. Selinsgrove is 0-4 in the quarterfinals against WPIAL teams. 3 losses to Thomas Jefferson years ago. Now classes have changed. Like Peters Township and North Allegheny and some of these other teams, of course, you get to this point, Aliquippa's facing one very top-notch skilled player, but it's on the ground, so it's not a quarterback. So where Aliquippa is a little susceptible is in the pass game. Tucker Teets, a 5'10", 185-pound senior, has rushed for more than 200 yards in 2 of the past 3 games. He has 2,237 yards on 20 carries against. We don't know what the competition was, but Quip is very good at stopping the run. They did a really good job of stopping McKeesport's run. I have a feeling this is right up Aliquippa's alley as well. Much like Bell Vernon, I think Quip is right there with Peters Township and Bell Vernon as being, in my mind, the 3 teams that have the best chance of winning just because of what they do well and what the other team does well. I think they can stop them.
Well, District 4's kind of hit or miss with the competition. You have some really good programs there like Southern Columbia, Loyal Sauk, Selinsgrove, and then you have some not-so-good programs. And probably their toughest game of the year, on a tragic note, is you don't see teams with a tie in the record anymore, but Selinsgrove is 13-0-1. They tied Jersey Shore 21-21 back on September 8th.
Yeah.
A Jersey Shore player collapsed during the game, and the game was stopped, and then unfortunately he passed away a few days later.
Yeah, unfortunately those things do happen. But it's the state semifinals again. In 1A, Fort Cherry plays Red Bank Valley at Farrell on Friday night. In 2A, Beaver Falls, the Tigers, local team, they're going to play Westinghouse at West Allegheny Friday. That will be on Beaver County Radio. We'll start at 6:30. The game will be at 7. In 3A, Bell Vernon plays Hickory at North Allegheny. That game Friday night. In 4A, Aliquippa, just talked about them. They'll play Sealands Grove at Central Cambria on Friday night. We'll try to get you scores to all these games during our broadcast, of course. 5A, Peters Township plays Cocalico at Altoona on Friday night. And the only Saturday game is North Allegheny playing Harrisburg at Altoona Saturday. If Aliquippa would happen to win, they would play next Thursday night, a week from tomorrow, at 7 p.m. in the state championship game. And if Beaver Falls wins, they would play in the state championship at 1 p.m. on Friday the 2nd. So December 1st and 2nd. Is that the right? The first? No, not the 1st and 2nd. It would be the 8th and the 9th is the days. So, John, thank you again for joining me all this time this year. Thanks to Ryan Garazunas. Thanks to Nick Nardone for joining us. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Thanks to everybody. We've made another successful Coaches Corner for 2023. Rejoin us in the beginning of the year. We'll have basketball, Coaches Corner for basketball here on Beaver County Radio. Go Quips, go Tigers.
Hey, Beaver County high school football season is here. Players, protect that beautiful smile with a visit to your hometown dentist, Dr. Peter Montini and his team at St. Barnabas Dental. While tackling tooth decay